Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our For Our River episode 8. My name is Kim Bednarik. I'm the board chair of the St. Mary's Riverkeeper Board of Trustees, and I'm delighted to welcome you to talk about our strategic plan for 2024 to 2027. We had an incredible outpouring of information to help guide our plan. And I'm going to walk you through some of the things that happened during our process. And as we go along, I suspect many of you might have questions. So please, if you don't mind, put your questions in the chat. And either Emily or I will answer those questions at the end of our presentation. So the St. Mary's Riverkeeper has been really a nonprofit organization caring for the river for 8 years, established in 2016. And in 2024, we made the decision to move forward into a formal strategic planning process. We collaborated with the Tractor group, Jana Tractor, who's principal for that group, and went through a comprehensive process of surveying the community, getting your feedback, conducting in-person interviews with our stakeholders, our community members, our investors, our trustees, our citizen scientists, and really so that we could be informed on what our next steps were as an organization, strategically to do our work to serve the St. Mary's River and the watershed that our river runs through. We developed a communications plan as an outcome, community presentations as an outcome, and I'm grateful that you all trusted us to do this work on behalf of the river. I do represent a very engaged board of trustees. I have the privilege of serving as the board chair. We have 11 trustees and 2 ex officios, and that group worked tirelessly over 3 months, meeting regularly at least twice a month, to really come up with what we think is not only an ambitious plan, but a meaningful plan to all of our friends and citizens and community members along the river. One of the things that we focused on is what we call a SWOT. So it's an analysis of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as an organization. Remember, the St. Mary's Riverkeeper is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we exist to serve the communities that the river runs through and also to take care of the river. And in this process, we identified our strengths, which you can see here on the screen, things such as the Riverkeeper being a valuable community partner. We do a great job of educating the public. We inspire love for the St. Mary's River, and we are a credible science-based organization. Some of our weaknesses were things such as needing to do better communications and storytelling, finding more ways to increase awareness, increasing community engagement, particularly focused on volunteer programs and youth, focusing on our water quality program, really the hallmark of our work, making sure we have better reporting to state agencies and residents, and to strengthen our partnerships. We identified our opportunities. We are a uniquely positioned nonprofit where we are converging on wildlife, conservation corridors, endangered species, biodiversity. The work that we do encompasses all of those topics. We focused on, one of our opportunities is to focus on a better quality of life for all of the people who live, work, and play along the St. Mary's River, and really take a holistic view of our watershed. We are a border river. We border Florida and Georgia, and that puts us in a really unique position to serve 2 states and to engage 2 states on river health. Some of our threats, things that we talked about very candidly, and I think that you'll find that our strategic plan addresses in a very thoughtful way, is the population growth in our area. Some places it's too much, some places it's too little. What's happening for local planning, for development? How are we engaging with our electeds in our counties and our cities on planning? The threat of mining in our watershed, the misuse of our watershed, really not having the trust that we need to do the work that's required, legislation and development not aligning with the mission of the St. Mary's Riverkeeper. And then what we know is accelerating climate trends that are negatively impacting our public health and our ability to enjoy our river into the future and for future generations. So this process of going through a SWOT is really what we dug into with your input. So I have to thank you for what you've done to give us the information we needed to develop this plan. And I want to show you some of the words that really popped out that I hope you're also going to see evidenced in our plan that Emily's going to introduce here in a minute. But if you look at our word cloud, these are your words. This is the feedback that you gave us about how you describe your St. Mary's River and how you describe the St. Mary's Riverkeeper and what our role is, what it always has been, and what you want it to be moving forward. So St. Mary's Riverkeeper is an advocate, is a protector, is dedicated, is an environmental steward. And then, think about our river. Growth, water, flowing, good, all those words that describe the river and then describe what the work is of the Riverkeeper. So at this point, I am going to hand the plan over to our amazing, committed Riverkeeper and Executive Director, Emily Floor. Just want to say a couple of minutes about Emily before I hand it over. I do consider it a privilege and a responsibility to serve as the board chair of the St. Mary's Riverkeeper. I've worked with Emily for 2.5 years. She's the first executive director for the St. Mary's Riverkeeper. Our board absolutely adores Emily. Her commitment is extraordinary. She does incredible work. She's a leader. She's really committed to the community. And I'm just so grateful to introduce her and thank her for her work. And I'm excited that you're here today to learn about our new strategic plan, our new mission and vision. And I'm going to hand it over to Emily. Thank you so much, Emily, for all you do.
Well, thank you, Kim, for that warm welcome and introduction, and for your amazing leadership for the Riverkeeper and for me. So this strategic plan, it's the first strategic planning process that I have been a part of from beginning to end. In other organizations, I've been a part of it as a staff member, but haven't really seen it from, how do we, bringing on a facilitator, working through the process, and then after having the actual document going into the action plans of how do we implement what we want to do through the strategic plan without it just, being put in a binder and put on a shelf. So we really emphasized as a board that we wanted this to be a working document to help guide the organization for the next 3 years. So in order to do that, we had to reevaluate our mission. The watershed is growing. There are new threats on the horizon. There are issues to tackle, paths to take, short-term, long-term. And so how do we tackle it all? And we're a small river. It's only 130 miles, but I call us small but mighty because we do have the challenge and the opportunity, sometimes they can be the same thing, to be able to work in 2 states. So working in Georgia, working in Florida. So how do we bring all of that together into one strategic plan and making sure that when we're in Georgia, we're able to work amongst the Georgia regulations and Florida in the Florida regulations. So our mission is to protect the St. Mary's River now and for our future. And this was very important because protect was one of the largest, you saw in the word cloud, protector was one of the largest words that kept coming out of those surveys. So we wanted to ensure that that was put into our mission because that's what we are. We're the protector. We're the voice for the river. When I used to work with kids, I used to call us, we're the Lorax. We speak for the river instead of for the trees. That really resonated with a lot of people of every age. And then now to be sure that we are including the protection for today's generations, but also for our future. So today's generation as they get older, and then for our kids' kids. bringing into that idea that it is our future. And then we have that bringing in the resiliency component into that. For our vision, we really wanted to draw in the community to this. We can serve the river all we want, but without the support of our local leaders, local community leaders, local community groups, we won't be successful. Again, we're small but mighty. We don't have a large watershed. So we have the ability to focus on not just the river, but those who utilize it, those who live around it, directly on it, or, you know, even miles away from the main stem of the St. Mary's along the tributaries, because the tributaries health impacts the health of the main stem St. Mary's. We also, with so much development coming in, we wanted to promote sustainable economic development. We have some very rural communities that are undergoing change. And so we want to be a part of those conversations when it comes to economic development to ensure that what is coming in is sustainable, to make sure that the communities are thriving for years and years to come. And so we're on the Florida-Georgia border, as Kim mentioned, from Okie to Ocean, headwaters in the Okefenokee Swamp, 130 miles to the Atlantic Ocean, bookended by two national treasures, the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge and Cumberland Island National Seashore. And so, we wanted to keep it for future generations, being that leading example of ecological integrity, shared stewardship, and enduring appreciation for the river. We worked really hard on our core values. So what do we believe as the trusted voice for the St. Mary's River? And the overwhelming response from you, from our board, was that clean water is essential and beneficial to all. So that was really the reason for why that's at the very top. But other large words that came out of that was collaboration. Again, we can't do this without the community. This is a local approach. This is a regional approach. We work with the states. We have great partnerships with our federal partners as well. So how do we collaborate to ensure that we are successful in our conservation advocacy efforts? We are an advocacy group. That's what a Riverkeeper is. And so we want to make sure that the interest of the people and wildlife we're advocating for both of those. We are a science-based advocacy organization, so we use sound science to ensure that our advocacy efforts are being put forward. So that ensures that we build trust with the local community. And we want to empower people, the individuals, to lead to watershed change. We're a small organization, and we need you to help us be river keepers. You are a river keeper. And so we want to empower you to feel like that your voice is heard, and it will make a change in the watershed. So being a part of two states, again, a blessing and a curse, I tend to say. It does bode difficult during legislative session, especially when they're simultaneous. And I have to remember when I'm in Georgia and when I'm in Florida. But it does allow us to make a difference in two states to protect our waterways. So we are a part of a coalition in Georgia called Georgia Water Coalition. It's made up of all river keepers in Georgia, all 9 of us in Georgia, interfaith groups, private groups, citizens, big environmental conservation groups that come together to protect the waterways of Georgia. And then on the Florida side, we're a part of the Waterkeepers Florida, which is compiled of all 15 waterkeepers in the state of Florida, protecting Florida waterways. And then as a Riverkeeper, we're under our umbrella organization of Waterkeeper Alliance. And this is an international organization. I call it our mothership. So she sends us, they send us our requirements in order to be a Riverkeeper. But they allow us to serve our river in the best way that fits our watershed. So not all watersheds are the same. Some are very large, some are very small. Many of the waterkeepers in Florida have to deal with blue-green algae blooms. We in the St. Mary's River don't have that, but we do have nutrient pollution issues. So we're all able to address the concerns of our watershed in our own way, as long as we fit certain criteria under Waterkeeper Alliance. But it also comes with a lot of resource access in case we need some advice or help or sharing of documents. So we're not all starting from scratch. So it's a great resource and connector. But as our role for both of those states and across the international field of Waterkeeper Alliance, our role for the river, for our river, is to be a trusted resource, making sure we have subject matter experts available to address problems impacting the river. We are not a state agency. This is really what sets us apart in why we can sometimes get phone calls and do what we do, is because we're not a state agency. That does mean that we can have an impact on state regulations through public comments, but we can't directly alter those by going in and like typing it in. So, but that makes us a watchdog, and it makes us very powerful because we are a citizen action group. These became very big in the 70s when the Clean Water Act was signed into law, that provided citizens the right to have a voice in the protection of their waterways. And that's how Waterkeepers got started. So we are that watchdog organization, but not just raising the alarm of a pollution problem. We really want to help seek solutions, whether that is helping with letters of support for grant writing or doing in-kind work through water quality testing for a water quality grant. Any way that we can participate in helping find a solution for a problem makes us a good community member and a community partner. We also want to be a steward. So having good river etiquette. A lot of the ways that many of you engage with us through this is through our cleanups. So our St. Mary's River cleanup every April is a great way to be a steward of your St. Mary's River. People that go boating on the river, they'll send pictures in saying, hey, look how much trash I picked up out of our river. And so we want to make sure that we are good stewards of our river. And then, of course, advocating for it, for the protection, not just the local level, but also at the state level through decision-making processes and engaging the general public in those advocacy efforts through calls to action. So our strategic priorities, this was a pretty lengthy discussion because it's hard to boil large ideas down into limited topics. And how do we, what are the priorities for the next 3 years? Because once you go down the rabbit hole, you can go pretty far down that rabbit hole. So what do we see in the next 3 years as our priorities as an organization? And the first one that came up over and over and over again was involving the community. The community became at the core of our mission and our vision. It's a part of our how we engage and how we make a difference is by engaging with the community. So it seemed necessary that or critical that the community engagement part was part of this priority to create a deeper connection to the St. Mary's River, but also with capacity building. So growing the organization with staff and trustees and volunteers to get the work done that needs to be done. And then, of course, fund development for the short term and long term. And all three of these priorities require a comprehensive communications plan, which we'll go over in a little bit, but also that cultivation, the collaboration with strategic partnerships to ensure we fulfill our strategic priorities. So looking at that community engagement piece, some of these you'll see from that the word board that you saw earlier. Education and outreach really went to the top of the list. And so we want to make sure that people are educated about our river. K-12 is one of our audiences you'll see on the next slide. But also adult education as well. So one of the ways we've been able to create that deeper connection with the river is by offering opportunities to go out on the St. Mary's River through boat tours, paddle trips, to give people that connection. So when there is a call to action, they feel empowered and they have that story to help protect it. Enhance our advocacy practices by collaborating with key strategic stakeholders. Expanding our water quality testing program. As Kim said, this is pretty much a core program for us and helps us do what we do And so we just need to expand that and improve upon that to make it more user friendly. Do community events, staying at outreach tables, talking with the community, engaging with them, getting out and being the face of the river amongst the community, and then lead a regional approach to address issues that the St. Mary's River is facing from a watershed view. We have a lot of political boundaries, but water does not care about political boundaries. It flows the easiest path downhill. And for us, that includes 4 counties in 2 states. So how do we respect those political boundaries, but ensure that the entire watershed is protected? And so our community building strategies, connecting with people, communication came up a few times. So how do we take that to the next level? How do we expand our watershed outreach programs? Do we need to identify what programs we need to be involved in within each county? How do we improve upon our delivery of materials about the river and Riverkeeper, and then helping residents to see how they fit in to the watershed? Sometimes that's hard to visually see. So thankfully we have a map to kind of help visually see where you are in the watershed. Protecting the river, expanding our award-winning citizen science program, and ensuring that our volunteer team is organized and strong. This continues to show the community that we're out there monitoring, ensuring that the waterways that they're fishing in, swimming in are healthy. And so we don't get any of those hot spots of bad water quality where it becomes normalized by the local community of kids getting sick every summer and they just get the summer ick, which happened in one of our areas in the watershed. But thanks to our partnership program and our citizen science testing program, we were able to get funds into that community to remove failing septic tanks. And now kids go swimming in that area of the river and they don't get sick anymore just by swimming. So it's a success story, which is now being replicated in another part of the watershed. We're an advocacy group. We want to make sure that our advocacy is intentional, clearly stated, easily accessible, but we're also working with our partners and what's going around us. We're strategically placed in a very cool area of Southeast Georgia, Northeast Florida, where you have corridors, the Florida Wildlife Corridor coming up. You have the Georgia Sentinel Landscape up in Georgia, wanting to do land protection. So there's a lot of convergence right here at the state border, where people are leaning on Riverkeeper to be a leader in a lot of these efforts to try to connect Florida and Georgia's wildlife corridors. And they are asking us to help them serve as well as make connections with strategic partners within the watershed, so we can expand that wildlife component. One of the other cool things we have is the collaboration is to try to establish a paddle trail on the St. Mary's River. So doing paddle guides, working with landowners, do the county access points to try to get more people on the river. It goes back to that sustainable economic development through ecotourism. And so we're working on that as well. So this is the map that's been generated just to show how the waters are connected to the St. Mary's River. So this is the entire watershed map. And so it does include Nassau River, although the Nassau does flow straight out to the Atlantic Ocean. But St. Mary's Riverkeeper's jurisdiction as defined by Waterkeeper Alliance includes the Nassau River. Otherwise, there would be no one there to protect it. But our priority is the St. Mary's River. And so really there's 4 sections. And within those 4 sections of the St. Mary's River, there's over 200,000 residents that live in it. They're all connected to the St. Mary's River, even if you live 30, 40, 50 miles away from it. And it's all through those intricate little streams that flow into creeks, which then flow into smaller rivers, which then flow into the St. Mary's River. So everyone is connected in this map to the St. Mary's River by water flow. And so if there's a leaking septic tank way off of the main stem St. Mary's, that E. coli contamination can make it all the way to the St. Mary's river and could cause some public health issues. So we've divided it into 4 sections. We have the upper section of the St. Mary's, which is Baker County, and a teeny tiny little bit of Charlton. And then you have the Trail Ridge stretch, and that's all the water flowing off the east side of Trail Ridge into main stem St. Mary's. Then you have the middle, which is mainly West Nassau and a tiny little bit of Duval and Camden County. And then you have the coastal area of Camden and Nassau County. All in 130 miles, which is crazy. So some select tactics on how we're going to be doing our communications plan and getting people engaged with us and implementing our strategic plan is we have 2 that are currently in process. So consistent cadence, this is our communications part of it. So our monthly newsletters, our luncheon, these lunch and learns. When we started these a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were doing them very frequently. Things got busy, so this is our second one of the year only, but we're hoping to get back into a consistent cadence with that. Printed newsletters, website, social media, media relations, and advocacy support. We've had a lot of press releases recently, and so that's gained a lot of traction with some of our initiatives, such as the one that I'm going to talk about next, which is our sturgeon short film. We've received 2 generous donations to produce a documentary about the sturgeon research going on in the St. Mary's River. One of them is for a full documentary, which is going to start being produced in September and October, which will take a little while to produce. But back in July, through a generous donation, we were able to produce a sneak peek into that full documentary. So we were out in the field with Fish and Wildlife Service and the University of Georgia and St. Mary's Riverkeeper to film a ground truthing mission to identify where potential spawning grounds could be for the Atlantic sturgeon in the St. Mary's River. And so we're going to have that available at our fall fundraiser, which I'll talk about at the end. That'll be premiered at our fall fundraiser. And we're hoping that this will be used as a community builder, raising awareness, kind of as a springboard of what are we doing to help protect the community and the wildlife connected to the St. Mary's River, because the St. Mary's River is the southernmost end of the Atlantic sturgeon's habitat range. And so it's going to be the first river impacted by climate change. And so how is that going to impact the endangered species of sturgeon? And then we can use it as a convening tool for legislative activity and advocacy. And then our water quality, this is coming soon. We're really revitalizing our water quality program. We're putting it under the microscope to make sure that what we are doing is accurate, scientific, easily accessible, easily understandable. And that way we can use our water quality data to ensure that we're identifying impaired waterways that can lead to community action, which then can lead to legislative action as well. So how do we measure all of this, right? It's all well and good that we have all these great plans, but how do we keep track of our success? How are we getting to our benchmarks? And so we've tasked, it wasn't just 3 months with the board meeting every month, sometimes twice a month as a full board in committees, talking with stakeholders. We have now our draft plan, or our final plan, our final strategic plan, which is now available on our website under About Us. But now, how do we take that and make it real? So we have a great plan, but how do we move forward? What's our next step? So the board has continued to work on this and build action plans for each of our current committees. And so we're doing that with each of our priorities as well. So how do we know we are being successful through our action plans and through community engagement? So indicators that we've identified of us being successful is keeping the river beautiful. So river cleanups, more involvement in that, more pictures being sent of people on the river bringing up trash and throwing them in the proper receptacle. And so we're inspiring those individual actions as well as the collaborative actions. We're going to increase public access points to encourage recreational use. That's through the paddle trail program that we have started connecting with the states on. Building partnerships that are true and are authentic, so they do lean on us as a local expert when it comes to the river. Investment in the region for good environmental stewardship and conservation advocacy. So we're attracting the right kind of economic development into the region. And then our counties are accepting policies and adopting best management practices that drive action to protect the St. Mary's River and its community. For capacity building, again, we're looking at increasing board service, staff, volunteers, and so cultivating the right partnerships, funding sources, and addressing issues facing the river. And then for fund development, expanding our donor base, the amounts given, and then really targeting grants because there is a lot of money at the federal level at the moment. So one of the grants St. Mary's Riverkeeper has recently applied for is through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant to help build and plan for an entire watershed resilience plan, which, fingers crossed, we should hear back between Thanksgiving and Christmas on whether or not we received that grant. That'll help with capacity building for the organization, but it also increases our connection and partnership with the University of Georgia, who would be leading the resilience planning workshops and development of the plan itself. And so that's really one of the ways for the shorter term that we can get some funds into the region and help serve our watershed community. And at this moment, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, as Kim had mentioned. I believe Kim had put the link into the chat as well. So if you'd like to see the full plan and review it in your own time, it is available on our website. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. Kim, while people are maybe typing, did you want to add anything to what was mentioned?
No, just a thank you, Emily, for your leadership.